Well, I want to welcome you to our program today. We have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Renee Boge, and she's a person of great inspiration and just how God is in our lives and how God inspires us and helps us in all times and circumstances of life, and just how God's work dwells within us richly. And for Renee, there's a couple of verses as we get started here that have been of great inspiration to her. One of these is from Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. And then also, another Bible passage that has been, or verse that's been very helpful to her, of great inspiration, would be from Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And so when you think about that, God has a plan for us, and that God has hope for us, and that's who we are as people, and is that God inspires us to have peace and to be still and to know that He is God. Well, anyway, Renee, welcome to the program today.
Thank you.
And, well, first of all, Renee, I just want to ask you, where are you from?
I live in Dubuque now, but I'm originally from Springfield, Massachusetts, and I like to say the home of Dr. Seuss.
Okay, so when you think about a community, a city,
Yeah.
you know, every city kind of wants its claim to fame, and
Right.
so, well, I'd say Springfield certainly has a claim to fame there. Dr. Seuss, he's one of our favorites because he writes children's books, and I don't know if that had you've written a children's book. We will
Yes,
get
I
to
have.
that here eventually, but I don't know if that had. Is everybody that's growing up in Springfield writing children's books? We're all
Maybe
trying to
not.
be like Dr. Seuss.
Maybe not. It was just something that I had on my bucket list.
Okay, yeah. So when you
Finally
think about
came to
Springfield.
pass.
In Springfield, Massachusetts, well, I think about Boston, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
and they've got Mother Goose, right?
Yeah.
You know, wrote all those children's stories, and so I think of Massachusetts. I guess that's where kids like to go, and also in Boston they have the little children's book, Make Way for the Ducks. You know,
Yeah,
the one where
they
all
do.
of that. So I
Yeah.
suppose we could spend the whole time just talking about children's books.
That would be
and-
fun, too.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun, and and just all these children books that we remember, nursery rhymes that we can remember from the time that we were kids, and that we have also read to our children and continue to be in it. And sometimes those children's books, when you think about
They have
that,
a big message,
they have quite a
powerful
message.
message.
You know, it's very profound. I think some of those. You know, I'm a big fan of Hans Christian Andersen and his fairy tales, and look at some of the truth that is in a lot of those stories that we can
Right.
relate to today,
Right.
like the Emperor's Clothes.
Right.
Okay. Well, okay. So, what brought you from Springfield, Massachusetts, to Dubuque? May I ask?
My parents had relocated to Dubuque. It was a 5-year relocation, and so that's what brought me here. And I went to Clark College,
Okay.
and while I was in Clark College, I met my husband, Steve, and so that's how that happened.
Okay, so you went to Clark College, and I hear a lot of good things about Clark College, a very good school.
Now Clark University.
Well, Clark University.
Right.
All right.
But I went to Clark College, but Clark University now.
Yeah, and that's where you met your husband? Mm-hmm. Okay, how wonderful. And what did you study at Clark?
I was studying teaching. I was double majoring in special ed and regular ed.
Okay, very good. And so you have your husband and children.
My husband's Steve,
Steve?
and we have a son, Cole,
Cole?
and he's 25, and we have a new daughter-in-law, Kelsey, and they were married in September, in fact, on my mom's birthday, on Grammy's birthday, and then we have a daughter, Katrina, and she's a junior at Iowa State. She's studying right now in Seville, Spain.
In Spain.
In Spain.
How about that?
So,
what an experience that is.
Wow.
What's she studying in Spain, Miss?
She's studying, she is sociology and women's studies major and a minor in Spanish.
Oh, so what an experience that is.
What an
Yeah,
experience. She's
for
doing well.
both, all
fun.
of that, sociology, women's studies, and in Spanish. Well, it's a perfect place for that then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Have you been a Christian all of your life, would you say? Or when?
I would say yes. Since forever. I can't remember
Okay.
not.
Can you never remember a time when you weren't a Christian?
No.
Okay.
No, I would say no.
But you've been, but as far as being a Christian, you've been a Christian all of your life, and how God has been with you and faith building. Who have been some of the influences in your faith?
I would say my grandmother,
Your grandmother.
and
Okay.
we called her Meme, and Meme was absolutely amazing in my life. We were babysat by Meme and Pepe often, and she had a quiet, gentle nature. She sat oftentimes in a rocking chair, which I have now in our home, which we have now in our home. And it brings me comfort to sit there. I think about her holding her rosary and rubbing her knees. They would hurt, with arthritis. And I can remember, even as a little girl, thinking, I want to be like Meme. I want to be sit in a rocking chair and relax and watch shows. And she had a lot of time for all of us grandkids. A lot of time to play her little organ or to play Candyland. That was my favorite. Or Parcheesi. That was her favorite. She just had a lot of time, and that was wonderful witness to me.
So she was really quite a mentor then, a teacher and an
Yeah.
example,
And I don't even know if she really realized it at that time.
yeah. Well, you think about people who influence our faith. I mean, there's always a couple of things that I always think are so important. Number one, that they're teachers,
Yeah.
and that they're able to teach us, well, biblical principles, to love the Lord our God and to instill a real respect for God in our lives, but that they also live it.
Yeah.
It's, always hear people talking about, well, do as I say, not as I do. And I think, no, that's not right. You do as I say, and you also do as I do. And I don't mean that in a strict manner, meaning that I'm teaching about the ways of God. I mean, this is what we are to do. But now I'm also going to be the example of that, of how you can do it, because it's kind of hard to convince people to do something when you can't do it yourself.
She was really a person, too, that served. I remember on Sundays we would go to eat like brunch, lunch type of a thing. And one family would come in and we'd sit and we'd start eating, and then someone else would trickle in, and then another family member would trickle in, and you just keep expanding, like bring one more chair up to the table, and that was really nice. And there was always enough too, and dessert, and those were really nice times. And then too, if you went on your own, like as I got older and I was able to drive there on my own, you'd come in and she'd say, "What can I get you, dear? Do you want a cup of tea? Do you want an egg sandwich?" Like she just served. She just wanted to be there for people.
And isn't that something, I mean, we always learn that that's one of the marks of being a
Right,
Christian is to
right.
show hospitality.
Hospitality.
To make people feel comfortable in your presence, and to
Yes.
serve people in love, and to make them feel special. I mean, that's one of the things that we have so much today, where people just want to
Yeah.
be made to feel special,
Right.
like you are important, you're
Right.
significant. And I'm here to, to show that to you, but I'm also here because, above all else, I want to be in relationship with you. And I've always appreciated the people like that say, my door is open to you, the coffee pot is on, here are the cookies, and let's have some fellowship.
She was wonderful. My husband still talks about that she always had a wonderful pie, just everyone was the most special to her.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
A friend to
Yeah.
all.
Yes.
So that was a person
Meme.
Meme, was very important in your
Very
life
important.
and very much part of your faith development. And there probably were others as well that had an influence on you. But Meme is a person
I
that
would say
you have
so.
to say
Yeah.
thank the Lord for her.
I
And-
would, yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so it sounds okay. And so your teaching career, you mentioned that you had been teaching, and also you had kind of an emphasis, I know, at least in college, at Clark College, of special education. So when you got out teaching, what actually did you teach then? What subjects? Or
Well, my husband and I, when we got married, we were married in Massachusetts. And I taught there. For a few years, I taught kids with behavioral difficulties in Massachusetts, and that was 6th grade. And then after living in Massachusetts from 1985 until 89, in 89 then we moved back to Dubuque. And my husband had a piece of property offered to him to buy. And so we came back to Dubuque, and then I worked at a school. It was called Helen Keller at that time. Now it's called Eisenhower. And I taught little children with special needs, with Down syndrome or autism, various special needs, small group, maybe 10 kids at a time. And that's what I did there. I had an associate and foster grandma, and I always say you're only as good as your associates or your foster grandma. It really was a triangle, and we all needed to be present, to make it work with the kids. And those were very special days for me.
Yeah, so it just sounds like you had a love for teaching, because you have a lot of love for children.
Children.
And it also sounds like you really enjoyed the people that you worked with, and how important it is that you work as a team.
As a team.
And your team, or as you're part of the team, I mean, it's either together we make it or together we break it, so to speak.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of it. There's such a message to that, saying that, like you always hear, that you got to surround yourself with good people, because that'll make all the difference in the world for you.
It makes me think about children. I love children so much, and one thing that being around children, I think how the Lord said, "Let the little children come to me." Not only in death, but in life, they're amazing. They're simple and loving, kind. They have their moments. They have their times. There are a lot of difficulties out there too. I acknowledge that, but kids are good. Kids are good, and we need to let them know that and how special they are, and that's what I think.
Yeah. So your love for teaching, and your love for the Lord, and your faith, and so as far as we had mentioned a couple of the Bible verses that have been of inspiration to you at the beginning of of our time here. One was from Psalm 46, and the other one was from Jeremiah chapter 29. And I'm sure that there are other passages. You mentioned just now. Jesus says, Jesus blessed the children and said, "Let them come to me."
Right.
And it just shows that the Word of God is so integrated in your life and in your person, and how that then directs you in terms of your relationship with others, whether it be teaching, your family, your ministry. Yeah, so share a little bit about your ministry. What are those ways that you are, as far as, I know that you do some speaking, don't you?
Well, I have done through our church some talks with Emmaus groups, but I think I'll go back to the verse in Jeremiah, "I know the plans I have for you."
Yeah.
Because I think possibly, I know for me, that I know the plans I have for you. And I thought at a younger age, I know the plans, and I didn't focus on that verse when I was younger. I focused on, these are my plans. I'm going to go to college, and I did meet my husband, so we were married, and I went to college, and I wanted to get a house and have children and teach, and I had this whole plan, a worldly plan, if I may, and I did those things, got married, and we had children, and and I got to teach, quite a long time. But then I go back to Jeremiah, I know the plans I have for you. See, I believe that the Lord honored some of the wishes and plans that I had, but then I think the Lord, I did not know it at the time, had a bigger plan because I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And that was actually even before we had children. But anyway, that kind of took my life into a different direction.
Okay, so
than
the
all the
plan
plans
changes,
I had
yeah.
made. The plan changed.
And I think about Crohn's disease, what I know about that disease and, knowing some people who have had it, it's not an easy disease.
It's not. It's tricky. It's complicated. It's life-changing. It's life-changing for myself and for your loved ones and for your friends.
Yeah, and Crohn's, well, when I think about it, it affects the large intestine, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe has, but it also has effects on other parts of your body too, probably.
Right.
But I always hear, that it's just such a...
Just your large or small intestine.
It affects your small intestine as well.
It can.
Well, that's got to be awfully painful when that's activated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Those
so
are
that made
very
a
hard
big
times.
change in your life then, as far as, well, here you had everything seemed like it was going on such a purpose, as far as your teaching and your family, and then Crohn's comes into your life, and that has changed your life from the standpoint that you're not able to teach right now.
I'm not teaching right
That's
now.
got to be awfully hard for you.
That's hard. It brings tears to my eyes and lump in my throat.
Yeah. Yeah, but so as far as the inspiration that you receive from God, it's like it's not the end of your life, though, is
No,
it? But
no.
that your life is now
Right.
taken on a different direction,
Different
a different
direction.
purpose.
And then I miss teaching. I miss teaching a lot. But then I take out books and I look at the pictures and things like that. But then I realize that God's plan was so much bigger and better, because I was able to be at home with our kids, and I really always wanted to be at home also, and you can't really do both. And so that really put me in a position where I was home with our children. I medically retired when our daughter Katrina was going into preschool, I think.
Okay.
I think preschool. Anyway, then I was home with the kids, and that was really a mission that I would never have wanted changed. So God knew in His plan what
that was part of the plan.
Yeah.
As things unfolded.
was great.
And I always believe in what is written in Romans chapter 8, verse 28, that God does work good purposes out of very awful situations. And that would be an example to say, well, who wants Crohn's? And certainly you had a wonderful career in teaching, but some of the good is that you're able to spend more time with your own kids.
Right,
raising
your own
them.
children. And then I got to be with other kids, other people's kids too, giving rides to and from and different things like this. And so really then when I think about it, I didn't think about it then, but when I think about it now and recently, kids were really around all the time anyway. And then the kids liked to come to our house. So that was amazing. I could give them snacks and, so I was still able to be part of their lives and take care of myself too.
So that's a big job, raising your own kids, being a homemaker, and also having a house where other children in the neighborhood, friends like to come and feel comfortable and, a safe place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how about some other, as far as, this whole different direction now, as far as some of the, here again, that's got to be awfully tough. There's got to be those times where, oh, this is awful, but yet you do receive, in those times, how has God ministered to you?
I think that There were times that I doctor at the Mayo Clinic, and there were times that I would be at the Mayo Clinic maybe 3 weeks at a time.
Okay.
And my husband would be here with our kids and family. My husband's family would be here helping also, and friends. And that's how God ministered to me. He ministered to me and to our family through other people. And we were blessed in that way.
So the ship kept on sailing. You know, when something like this happens, I can see where it'd be easy to kind of get a negative frame of mind and start feeling awfully depressed about everything, and like life is going nowhere fast here. And
Nowhere fast.
but that wasn't the case.
Well, sometimes, to be honest with you,
sometimes it felt like that.
Sure, actually.
Sure, I would think so.
With for me, with a medical condition, Crohn's disease, also for me, there were periods of time that I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression.
Well, I would think
and
so. Yeah.
and I did, and if I may, sometimes I think that depression and anxiety, for me at least, was harder than having Crohn's disease.
Okay.
I do, yeah. But a lot of times the two go hand in hand.
Well, that's what I like. I like your witness and your testimony to say that, you know, for you to say, well, I got Crohn's disease, life is hunky-dory, and that's not the case. To say, no, this is a tough disease, and this is what it does to you, not just physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. It can bring you down as well, and but you are doing well. I mean, as far as you maintain a strong faith and a perspective, and that God is working through your life as an instrument and an encouragement to others. So I thank the Lord for that. And so when you think about, well, are there any things like that you would say that help you to continue to have a good Christian perspective? As far as just this is your, like, is there a certain attitude of Thanksgiving or gratefulness or anything like that you just say that helps me to say, well, in the midst of this, I'm going to try to remain grateful, or how do you do that?
I think for me, there's two things. The verse from the Psalm, "Be still and know that I am God." Many times, when I would be laid up with Crohn's disease, I would enjoy the kids playing around the couch, and our daughter told me recently that when we would have picnics with the red and white tablecloth that was my grandmother's on the floor, she thought that was great. Or they could just have takeout meals or whatever. The kids thought that was great. Well, here, that's when I didn't really feel so well, and so some of those things that I thought were just, oh my gosh, they thought were fun, and that was a blessing. But I think be still in your illness, and God has a bigger plan, and we don't know what that is always, and
be able to persevere through it, and to encourage others. Sounds like to encourage others to be thankful in spite of all of this, to see God's blessings in the midst of it. And one of the things that I'm so impressed, Renee, is that you've written a book. Okay, getting back to the children's stories and Dr. Seuss, and being from Springfield, Massachusetts originally. But share a little bit. Here's your book. It's entitled "God is With Me." And is this a book that they could get, like, for instance, off Amazon.com, or how do you go about getting a copy of this book?
I left my phone number with.
Okay.
I could say that I could
we'll
share
put
that
up
with
on
you.
the screen.
Okay.
To make sure. As
that'll
far
be
as
great.
people who want to get a copy of this book, how do you go about receiving it? Here again, God is With Me, and when was this published?
This was published this past summer.
Oh, just this past summer.
Yes.
So it's kind of hot off the press, really.
It's hot off the press.
Oh, I see. River Lights Publishing Services
Right.
on Main Street here in Dubuque. All right, and so what kind of inspired you to want to write a children's book?
Since I was young, when I was in 7th grade, I wrote a story, and the story was Jenny is Special. And it was about a little gal who had special needs. Who would have thought? And here I worked with kids, and at that time, I wasn't thinking I was going to be a teacher of children with special needs. So God works. And it was just really on my bucket list to write a children's book. May I read it? Should I read
Well,
it?
let's just hope. Yeah, I think we have we have enough time to read it.
Okay. God is with me. And give credit to Anna Billmeyer, who did the beautiful illustrations. She's a friend of our daughter's.
Yep.
And the watercolors were done by Diane Lake. She was one of my associates.
Really nice. Well done. Okay, well, let's. I think we have just about enough time to read through the story here, so we better get started. But yeah, it's beautiful illustrations.
God is with me when I'm happy and dancing all around. There's elephants. Maybe I'll read it this way. God is with me when I'm angry and fall down to the ground. God is with me when I'm brave to help me carry through. God is with me when I'm lonely and feel very blue. God is with me when I'm scared and want to run and hide. God is with me when I'm excited and shout out with surprise. God is with me every minute. God is with me every day. God is with me for forever and loves me just this way. And then there's a place to put your child's photo here. And the back cover is something I wrote for all. It says, "Blessed are we to have children in our midst. Let us make it our passion to teach of God's everlasting and abundant love for them. My prayer is that with humble hearts we may each know and feel the gift of worth God has placed upon us. Sincerely." And then I signed my name, Renee Boge.
Yeah, well, very nice, Renee. This is a nice book. It'd be a nice book for grandparents to get to read to their grandchildren, or parents to their children, even kids who are learning how to read. It's a beautiful story, wonderful illustrations. Well, Renee, thank you. You've been a real blessing to us.
Thank you.
And God bless you, and thanks for being on our program today, and thank you for joining us today as well.